What's up guys, Squirrely here. I want to give you guys a video on a bleed lich that I've been theory crafting for a little bit here. And this is going to be the character that I'm going to start with on in a couple days with last Epoch's new season. And I think it's going to be a really good league starter because I think bleed is really easy to scale. I think Flay looks really good. The skill tree is like super strong. Tons of good synergies going on here. Lots of HP. You can see we're at 8,300. You know, big defenses. We got like 16k max hits, and it's going to be even more than that. You know, when things are actually, you know, when we're in Lich form, etc. We're just going to be so freaking tanky. You know, Brewmaster's Buckle is OP for that as well. Like, there's just a lot of things that are going to make this build, I think, going to be really good for pushing high corruption. And I think even killing Abberoth, we'll have to see. Obviously, it's a bit of a claim to make that a build that has a skill that's never been seen before can kill Abberoth. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. But I'm pretty confident that this is going to be a good build regardless. For sure, it can do all content up to that, because, I mean, it's not that hard to do that in last Epoch anyways. But let's go over what I'm going to be doing. And I also have a leveling planner as well for you guys, because I know sometimes it's like not obvious how to level as a build. And this build is actually really good because I think it's going to be a 0 to hero build where you play the same build from level 1 to level 100, which is my favorite kind of build. Builds that I try to play and Theorycraft every time I play an ARPG. And this is going to be one of those builds. It really is. You know, we don't get to play Flay at the beginning because we don't get Flay at the beginning, but we do get to play with Ripblood, which is something we're going to be using a ton in our build. But let's get into it. I'm going to explain. We're going to go over the skills. We're going to go over the passives. We're going to go over the gear, the idols, the blessings. I'm going to go over everything for you guys. It's going to be a bit of a long one as a result, but I just want to be super in depth, give you everything, all the reasons why I took things so that you can make different decisions, you know? Or if you think something's better, you know, even leave it in the comments. If you think, you know, I made a mistake or you think something's better, leave it in the comments below. You know, this is all Theorycraft, right? This isn't a set in stone build, not even close. You know, but I think we've got a good base here that I want to share for you guys. Yeah, let's dive into it. Let's start with the skills. So Flay is going to be our first skill, our main skill that we're going to use. Flay has a lot of good support for bleed. You know, we get this node, which is a punch of bleed chance, bleed damage over time, a bit less attack speed, but we can make up for that with Trepidation Blade here, giving us a ton of attack speed if we have a dagger, which we do. We're getting a bunch more bleed duration. Bleed duration, by the way, is one of the best ways to scale the build. It's like pretty much just more damage straight up per point, as far as I know. So it is very powerful. So you want to get as much duration as possible. And then, yeah, just a bunch of good nodes in this tree. We're getting a curse on hit guaranteed every time we hit an enemy with Flay. Curse on hit means that we also get to apply Bone Curse on hit as well with Chaos Bolts, which we're casting via Flay's tree with these 2 points here. I've heard that this is getting nerfed, so I think this should only require 2 points instead of 3, which is actually kind of good for us because it gives us a point back. You can see I have 1 unspent point. It's actually been spent. If I take a point away, I'll actually be 1 point down because, again, I think this is going to get nerfed. If not, then just take a point out of here or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think this is pretty much a stable tree that I plan on playing, and I don't know if there's a better way to make it. You know, maybe you want to get Spectral Nightmare. Maybe that's super OP. I don't know. It's like kind of double damage, but it's only a percent chance to do double damage. I think you want at least 2 points into it. It's just, I don't know. You know, maybe you take points out of here and get into here. We'll have to do some testing on that. We'll see. Or, you know, points out of here. But either way, we're going to be doing Ripblood. So Ripblood's going to be auto-casted by our boots. Army of Skin. These are new boots that are really good for Flay. They auto-cast Ripblood for us. So, you know, Ripblood does bleed. It does a fair bit of bleed damage as well, with a bunch of damage over time nodes. And then it should be free to cast. But the boots are going to cost 2 mana no matter what. That's the line that it says here, that it will cost 2 mana. So, you know, it's not going to be free there, but it's going to be free if Chaos Bolts casts it, and it'll be free from the Warlock passive tree that will also be casting Ripblood. But yeah, Ripblood's going to be casting like crazy, and it's going to be doing a bunch of bleed for us, and bleed is all that matters. You know, the more stacks of bleed we can apply, the more damage we're going to do. So it's really good. Chaos Bolts is also going to be a ton of damage. This node is insane for our build because we're always going to be at 50% of our HP. We are scaling HP, so this is like 4,000. So it's actually like 250% or 200% more damage. I believe it is. Yeah, 200% more damage with a single node. That is pretty freaking nuts, man. Not to mention that this is also giving us more damage. You know, another 30% more damage. So, yeah, Chaos Bolts is going to be pumping deeps. We're also going to be doing, you know, bleed chance is going to be converted to 100%. Should be converted to 100% using the gloves. This has a nice line of 100% of ignite, frostbite, shock, etc. Poison chance is converted to bleed chance. Hoping that interacts with the chance in a skill tree. It might not. It's hard to tell. It's going to be hard to tell, but I'm hoping it does. That's why I have the points here. If it doesn't, I guess, points into here. Maybe, I don't know where else you put the points. So may as well risk it. I guess points in here is okay. And then we got Reperform. I think Lich plus Reperform. Kind of have to play Lich with Reperform, in my opinion. I mean, you don't have to, but it feels a little bit weird not to. And it's also just really strong, right? You get a bunch of movement speed, you get a bunch of attack speed, you get a bunch of bleed penetration, you get a bunch of bleed duration via this node, 30% bleed duration because of this. You get a bunch of armor. Like, it just gives you so much stuff, right? A bunch of damage. I mean, it's just so good. So, may as well use it. And then we have Aura of Decay. This is really cool. They reworked this with the new patch. It's giving us 20% less fizz damage taken. It's giving us a bunch of bleed applications in an area around us. It's getting 30% of our total bleed chance, which is, right now we're at 700%. We actually have more than that. The calculator doesn't actually calculate everything. We're probably at around 800-ish, maybe 850 or something. So yeah, we're playing a lot of bleeds. So this is going to be like 4 bleeds-ish, something like that, 3 bleeds in an area around us every maybe half a second with the ailment frequency or something like that, or every 0.7 seconds it's going to be applying a bleed. I don't know. It's also going to be applying slow, which is cool. It has a bunch of duration on it. And then also shreds enemy resistance via this node and this node. Very, very good. Yeah, really, really strong. And we're actually immune to the bleed that it's applying to us because of Exsanguinous. Let's go over our items. Exsanguinous is going to be our chest piece. This is going to give us missing health gained as ward per second, 20% missing health. And we're always going to be missing 50% of our health. So we're always going to be getting at least 20% of our health as ward per second. And we should be able to maintain roughly half our HP as ward. So yeah, this will be really good. And we're also getting a bunch of attack speed and movement speed from this thing whenever we use a potion. And we're getting the immunity to bleed at low health. Also, keep in mind with potions, because we're always at half HP and we're not at our max HP, every time we run over a potion that spawned on the map, even if we haven't used it, it'll be used. So it's pretty much auto-using potions for us, which is really nice for both Brewmaster's Buckler and Exsanguinous. So yeah, Brewmaster's Buckle is insane. It gives us 10% of our max HP as endurance threshold for 4 seconds, and it stacks. So we're going to be guaranteed just with 2 stacks to have all of our HP be covered by our endurance, which is just straight up 60% less damage taken. Yeah, just ridiculous, right? So I think this thing is a must use in high corruption. Before then, you're going to want to use Thorn Slinger, which is a really good belt as well. But I don't know where, I can't find it anymore. There it is. Thorn Slinger, really good belt. You get +1 to fizz skills, get some movement speed, get some bleed chance, and you get it really early on, level 12. This is like an insane belt to get if you get it early on, which hopefully you will. It's a pretty common drop. And you can get a bunch of LP on this very easily too, so I'll be using that for a long time. But once I start pushing like 1,000 corruption, maybe 2,000 corruption or something like that, Brewmaster's Buckle is going to be unbeatable. So, and it's easy to get. Like, it's 100% chance from the ground brewery to drop. So getting like a 1 or 2 LPA Brewmasters is going to be easy, right? For weapons, we're going to be using Taste of Blood. I think this axe is extremely good for bleed because it has this node here, or this mod, that says when you hit a bleeding enemy, that bleed stacks will be doubled in speed. That just means we have double our DPS, effectively, right? It's not doing double damage, but DPS is important. So, especially when you're doing clear speed and all that. And then we have Trader's Tongue. Trader's Tongue is a dagger. I think we should be using a dagger because of the node in Flay, right, giving us attack speed. And also there's a really good passive in the Lich tree that gives us movement speed and more damage and stuff when we're using both dagger and axe. But yeah, this dagger is really good because it gives us up to +4 to Flay, and then +2 to all their other skills. So really, really good. +4 to Flay is huge. You know, there's just so many good points in Flay that, like, I just don't think the build is nearly as good without those points. You know, so yeah, I think this is pretty much a must use. It's also giving us parry chance in the main hand, which is why it's in the main hand. Parry chance is just basically, you know, avoidance. We don't really have any avoidance, so getting some avoidance is quite nice. So I like this node. I like this weapon, I mean. And then Army of Skin, I already talked about it a little bit. But yeah, this thing is nuts. It also has a lot of good mods. Besides the fact that it's casting Rip Blood for us, it's also summoning minions on kill. It's also giving us a bunch of movement speed, giving a bunch of attack speed, and it's giving us a ton of damage to high health enemies. I'm guessing it's just above 50% HP. I don't know. And 50% more damage or something like that if you get a good roll is freaking insane. You know, and more melee damage and more generic damage modifiers will scale our bleed, because if our skill is doing more damage, then the bleed applied by that skill does more damage. That's also why int scales the damage. That's why we actually want int. It's also because in order for Chaos Bolt to use or to cast Rip Blood, you need to have some int, right? So we have a 50% chance whenever Chaos Bolt hits to cast Rip Blood. So I think it's worth it. But yeah, int is also scaling our damage, just because everything uses int to do more damage, and or increase damage anyways. And yeah. Let's see what else we got. We got so this is going to be my choice of Primordial Unique, at least for monoliths, because this thing is super sick. You know, I've already talked about the line where it's converting all of our chance to bleed, but we're also getting a ton of bleed chance on hit, 150% chance. We're going to get the explosions, which is the main draw of this thing. Every time we kill an enemy, they're going to explode, and then they're going to apply the bleed that they had on their corpse or whatever to another enemy. So it's going to cause chain explosions. And as long as there's enemies in a pack, it's just going to kill the whole pack immediately, as long as one enemy dies. And it's going to not just kill that pack, but if there's a pack nearby and the bleed hits them, which I'm hoping it will, I don't know how the AoE is, but if it does hit them, then it's just going to keep like killing things for us. It's just going to clear the whole map for us. You know, it's like, it could be completely busted. We'll see. But it has a really big roll range, especially for the Primordial Blood part, where it gains 37% to 100% chance to inflict bleed on hit. That's a big range. You're going to try to want to get as close to 100 as possible, I think. I don't know which one's more important versus chance to bleed versus that. But yeah, really good gloves regardless. And then you're seeing like how much health I'm prioritizing. So every single unique that can have health on it is going to have tier 7 health on it. That's just because health is doing more damage and it's giving us tankiness, right? So whenever you can scale tankiness and do more damage as a result of that, it's just worth, you know, investing into as much as possible, which is pretty much what I've done. I did make some choices where, like for this, I'm getting movement speed instead of health. For this, I'm getting Fizz Pen instead of health. It's up to you if you want to over-index more into defenses, but I think we have enough already, and it's better to get some Fizz Pen, which is just more damage, right? Yeah. And then the Chalice, this thing is really, really good for bleed because it's giving us duration, which again is just more damage basically, and also chance to apply bleed on hit, which is very, very good for us, of course. And it's giving us Leech, which Leech is also really good since we're always over-leeching. So the more Leech we can add to our over-leech, the more tanky we become essentially against, you know, hit that doesn't kill us one hit, which is probably never going to happen, I would hope anyways, until maybe 20,000 corruption or some crazy shit. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know how far this can be pushed. We'll see. But for the rares, this helmet is a really good implicit. It gives a bunch of flat mana, gives a bunch of mana regen, which is good, gives a bit of armor, and then of course the affixes are just good affixes in general, getting increased life, getting some flat life, getting some bleed chance, fizz pen, etc. There's a really good helmet as well that you could run, the Seed of Ectrisol, whatever they call, I don't know, it's a crazy name, Echidrisol. But you know, it gives a bunch of mana regen, damage up to mana over health, so MOM, and also some flat health, etc., etc. Like, this thing is insane, but I think you really would want like 3 LP, and that's very, very hard to get, right? Maybe 2 LP is still good, I don't know, but I don't think it's worth it until maybe 2 to 3 LP. So I think we'll just stick with this for now, in my opinion. And then for rings, we're just going to get the Ellie Res implicit rings, the gold rings, because our res is actually kind of rough. You can see this is like with max roll gear. With average roll gear, average roll, you know, affixes and stuff, we're only at 56%. So, you know, we're a little bit rough on res. So yeah, you're definitely going to want these implicits. And then for the affixes, again, tier 7 health. The rest is just, you know, mana regen is very, very important. You might even need tier 7 mana regen. I don't know. We'll have to see how it feels. But right now I'm just sticking with health. But yeah, that might have to change. And then some int. Int is good since it's kind of doing a lot of heavy lifting in multiple areas. We have some scaling with int, and we don't really get int from anywhere else. So that's the rings. Now let's go over idols. Idols is going to be HP basically. Oh, I didn't go over the amulet actually. So the amulet is going to be Pearls of the Swine. What this does is when you inflict a curse, specifically Bone Curse, which we're inflicting automatically with Chaos Bolts, it's going to inflict the Decrepify, which is also a curse. And that's going to be doing a bunch of damage. It's going to scale off our missing health, so even more damage as a result. And it's going to allow us to do more damage with 50% more damage over time. Enemies is taking 50% more damage. So this thing is nuts. Also has a bunch of good stats on it, regardless of that insane aspect of it. And it's a good base. So yeah, this thing is just BIS for sure. And then for the idols, we're going to be using large idols because they give a ton of health. You can see up to 9% increased health and 50 flat health. So idols are going to be a pain in the ass. This is really where like the roll range can be rough. You can see we have just under 7k life with average rolls and 8.3k life with max rolls. And that's mostly because of this, right? Obviously that applies here a little bit too, but there's no reason why you would slam a non-max roll on a unique, right? It's really easy to get actual uniques. But either way, or max roll affixes. But idols, not so easy. But yeah, you're going to want as much HP as possible. You can also see we're getting this endurance mod here, getting tier 7 endurance mod. This is actually really important. You can see we're barely at 60% endurance, and that's with max rolls, right? So average we're at 56%, which is fine. Yeah, we're gonna want the tier 7 endurance node, so keep rolling until you hit that. The other mods don't actually matter. The other enchants, so just take whatever you get. Who cares? This is really the main thing. And so we're gonna have 4 of these, just more life. This is also gonna be more life, a bit of res. This is gonna be able to apply some frailty. So frailty is really, really good because it's making the enemy do less damage, which is why we want at least one mod of frailty somewhere, and it's just on an idol, because why not? That's really nice to get that on the idol. And then this is a really powerful node on the Weaver, the humble ones. Get chance to apply bleed plus Fizz Pen. That's a ton of damage. And then we also get the physical resistance, because otherwise we wouldn't have max Fizz Res, right? So this will get us to max Fizz Res. You can also potentially get Fizz Res from Aura of Decay. You know, you can get a point into here. That's 15% Fizz Res, for example, instead of the Area of Effect. But I think Area of Effect is going to be better, and we can just get max Fizz from the idols, right? So whatever. And then for blessings, I'm actually taking the Void Res blessing, because our Void Res would be completely awful without it. It would be at like 10%. So yeah, we kind of need this. Ideally, we take flat health instead, but it's just really hard to get Void Res. Maybe you can get the Void Res from the idols, and you can drop some points from that Aura Decay to get the Fizz Res from there, but it's still not enough. You know, you can still maybe get like 20, you can get maybe 40% Void Res, and you're still like only at 50%, while this gets you max. So I don't know. It's hard to replace this right now. We get crit avoidance, a blessing, because we have, you know, one crit avoidance roll on this at 30%, and then this at max roll of 70% gives us immunity to crit. So you want to have immunity to crit in some form or fashion in Last Epoch, because it's just so easy to get. So yeah, this is a very easy way to get it. And then also the other choices aren't that good, right? I mean, this is maybe good. I mean, there's good choices, but you need avoidance to crit. We're getting flat armor from here, and that's because we have max endurance. If we don't have max endurance, you might want to pick this node instead for the endurance chance. If you're running Thornslinger, you're going to want to have to pick this, because I think endurance is just OP. You're going to want to get as much endurance as possible. Well, not as possible. You want to get up to 60, because that's the cap. But definitely make sure you're at least close to 60. So you can replace this node with the endurance node instead. I'm taking the Frostbite node because of the gloves, but the Fizz Shred might be better. I just don't know if our aura is going to apply 10 stacks within 4 seconds, or maybe it won't, and it's going to be better to take this node instead. We'll have to see. You know, I'll have to try both ones and just see what feels better. You know, but getting 100% chance to bleed on everything is really, really powerful, right? That's just like plus 10, 20 bleeds potentially, which I think is better than, you know, negative 20% res. That's why chance to bleed is so powerful, right? Is it's applying to literally everything that we're hitting the enemy with to get more and more bleeds. And bleeds can stack infinitely, you know. There's no limit, as far as I know, to the amount of bleeds an enemy can have. The more bleeds, the better. And then, yeah, we're getting flat mana because that is just the absolute best choice here. Everything else is complete ass. And it's actually just really good for us, because if you get, you know, 70-ish mana from this, 70 or 80 mana, you want to hit the breakpoint of 300 mana, and that'll let us cast 3 Chaos Bolts, because it's 1 Chaos Bolt per 100 mana, right? Also, it's 10% more damage per 100 mana, so it scales our damage. Yeah, that's the blessings and everything like that. And to go quickly over the passives, a lot of this stuff might be subject to change, but we're going to be getting a bit of armor from here. The reason why we have 31 points into Acolyte is because I think this node is really, really good because of bleed duration, which, as I said, is just straight up more damage, as far as I know. So it's just something that you have to prioritize, and it's pretty hard to find bleed duration elsewhere. So we're going to get it from here as well. And then we get the poison chance because that converts the bleed chance and gives us some poison res. I decided not to take 5 points into here because I'm getting the 5 points instead into here. And this is giving us int plus the same effect, while this gives us only that effect. And I think 25%, from what I could tell, is enough. If we're getting 25% of our life as ward, missing life as ward should get us to our max amount of ward that we can have, because when we have corrupted form, it means that we can only have half our HP as ward. So getting any more than that is useless, right? This node is really good because it makes us always count at low life, which is going to be for Exsanguinous, making us bleed immune. It's going to give us 30% more HP, which is a ton of HP. That's more HP. It's going to give us maximum health gained as endurance threshold, which is really powerful as well. It allows us to get Brewmaster stacked up more easily, essentially. Like, we don't have to have as many stacks to make it apply to all our HP. And other nodes are just going to be kind of centered around getting some tankiness, like these nodes, get some more damage over time reduction. This node, some health plus damage over time being taken as a direct hit, or direct hits being taken as damage over time, which is pretty good. And this is a really good node because both bleed and frostbite, the frostbite's going to be applying to bleed as well, so this is like 100% chance to bleed, 112% or whatever. Really, really good. Get at least 7 points into here because that makes the mana regen apply to our armor as well, a 50% chance. So that's a pretty good amount because we have like 130% mana regen or something. So it's like another 60% increased armor. Quite nice. We're getting the movement speed nodes from here basically because I think movement speed is the best stat in the game, typically. But you can maybe, if you don't think so, take points out of here and put it elsewhere. This is going to be, always in effect because we're always at low life. So it's pretty high value nodes. 15% damage per point is pretty damn good for no downside. So I think it's worth getting a fair bit of points into here. We're getting enough vitality or getting enough points in here to have max poison res. That's why I have points. This node lets us have just way more leech, and we're going to have overleech because of corrupted form, making us so that we're never going to hit that 66% leech cap. So yeah, our overleech is going to be super high. And this one's going to give us movement speed and more damage. So really good nodes in Lich. And then we're getting points in the Warlock because 5 points in here gives us a bunch of mana sustain. It gives us the mana regen plus it's like 40% chance total to gain mana on hits. It only happens every 3 seconds, so maybe it's not necessary, but I think mana might be an issue, so I think it's worth getting points in there. 5 points in here gives us 1 mana per int, so that gives us like 50 mana. Gets us again to that breakpoint of 300 mana. And then points in here, the reason why is because we get this bleed overload passive, which as long as we use a physical skill and an enemy has 25 bleed stacks, we cast Rip Blood at them and we get bleed overload, which is like, I think it's like 15% more damage with dots, which is pretty damn good. And then we also get these nodes because this will make Rip Blood cast every second when we have bleed overload. So this is an extra Rip Blood cast. I think it's probably worth the 4 points. Maybe it's not, but I think it probably is. I want to try it. And that's kind of the passives. Definitely there's some subject to change. That's going to be where I think most changes will happen. But it's pretty easy to respec passives, so I'm not too worried. It costs a bit of gold. But yeah, that's kind of the main build. None of the gear is extremely expensive or difficult to find. It's all 1 or 2 LP uniques, and the ones that have 2 LP are ones that are not uncommon to find. Like 1 in 17, 1 in 14, 1 in 28. Probably could even get a 2 LP pearls pretty easily, but I don't have that yet in here. But realistically, probably would have one. So yeah, all this stuff is pretty easy. Just get health on this once you get a 2 LP version. But then I also have a leveling version of the build. So leveling is going to be actually using similar uniques. I don't know if you'd use Exsanguinous while leveling, but maybe you could try. But definitely you'd want to use Taste of Blood. You'd want to use Trader's Tongue if you can find it. you would want to use Thornslinger for sure. You'll probably find one. I think those are, especially these two, are going to be really good uniques early on. And the skill we're going to be using as a leveling skill is going to be Rip Blood, which is nice because Rip Blood is going to be in our main skill, main build at the end as well. So we don't have to actually unspec out of it. And all the nodes that we're taking are going to be the same nodes we are going to be using, except for maybe this node. So also really nice there too. And, use the slider below here to see the points that I take in what order. I try to take things in order of what I think is the best way to level as, right? So we get 4 points to the bleed chance, we get 1 point to the here for some single target, then we get the free in -3 mana cost to make it be free, since it only has 3 mana cost, because mana sustain is always annoying early game. And then Wandering Spirits, I think, is a really good skill for like just killing bosses and stuff, or just killing enemies that are tanky. You can get this early on as well. It's like level, I think, 5 or something, levels 10 maybe. I think it's like 10 actually. And really strong skill. It has a long cooldown and it costs a ton of mana, but does a ton of damage. So we just get the poison chance and some, reveal chance. Yeah. And then Transplant is our movement skill. With Campaign, you kind of just want to move as fast as possible, so having a movement skill spec'd in is a good idea. It's also going to cast Rip Blood for us whenever we use it, which is quite nice. That means we can potentially just use Transplant, run around, and have it kill things for us, So, pretty sweet. It's also going to be casting Bone Curse, which is kind of nice. It'll have some cooldown reduction, gives us bone armor, etc. It's pretty damn good. Reperform, may as well spec into it early on. It might not be sustainable early on, we'll have to see, but, again, I think if we put 4 points into Mistress of Decay for the negative 40% health drain, we might be able to sustain it with some health leech. But yeah, I don't know. Might be tough. We'll have to see. But it gives us a lot of damage. It gives us some movement speed. It's definitely worth using if we can. And Aura of Decay is also a bit of a question mark. I don't know if we can really run this without using Exsanguinous plus being at low life, because we're going to be getting bleed stacks like crazy potentially, and might just be too much damage being taken, especially with Lich Reperform. So this is a bit of a question mark. I have it spec'd in for now, but otherwise, if it doesn't really work, you can just take Death Seal, you could take Bone Curse, or you could just spec in Flay and just let Flay get leveled up in this slot until you want to use it. So up to you. Yeah, pretty straightforward. I think it'll feel good to level. They did buff Rip Blood, so now it's not just hitting one enemy, but it's hitting a bunch of enemies in a line. So it should feel way better than it used to. It's also giving us life back, so it kind of gives us life sustain as well, which is quite nice. So yeah, I think it should be a pretty good build to level as, and it's also using a lot of the gear that we're going to use in the end game. So it has a very nice transition, right? You're not like using, you don't have to like drop all your gear and find different gear. It's just all very straightforward, easy to play. It should feel really good. That's the leveling build. And then I have a Uber Abberoth version. I don't know if this is actually going to be how, I don't even know if it can do Uber Abberoth yet, to be frank, right? But it just has better gear, basically. And it's going to be the main thing the reason why I wanted to have a planner for this is because I wanted to show off this amulet. This amulet's insane in combination with the aura, because it's making void damage be taken as physical, and then we're taking less damage of physical. So just giving us a ton of tankiness. And also our armor applies to Fizz much better than other things. So, the more armor we have, the more powerful this becomes as well. So Uber Abberoth should be even easier to deal with on with this setup. And the gloves don't really do that much for Uber Abberoth, right? Because the main appeal of the gloves is like the bleed explosions, and we're not going to be killing any enemies besides Uber Abberoth, hopefully. So, Grasp of the Blood Mage is just giving us less damage taken over time, essentially. Well, it's giving us our hit damage being taken as damage over time, which we're going to be leeching plus applying a bunch of reduction to. And yeah, I think this should be extremely tanky for Uber Abberoth, using the Seed of Ectrazil. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to kill him, but we'll see. Well, I'll be playing this new season with that goal in mind, so hopefully I can get there. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you guys have any suggestions maybe as well, let me know, and I might be able to implement them, because this is all theory crafting right now. There's things that I might have missed. I'm not like a last Epoch guru. I've played a few builds. I've made a few builds here and there. It's a pretty easy game to build craft in. But there might be some people who know better than me. If you guys have any suggestions, definitely leave them in the comments below. I'll be streaming, of course, this league coming up in a couple days. My Twitch channel will be in the description. I also have a Discord if you guys want to join in and do some theory crafting in the Discord. I definitely do a lot of my theory crafting there. It's also where I'm going to keep the planners updated, make sure there's planners there for you guys whenever I make changes. I'll also be doing YouTube videos as I play the build more. I'll do some updates, let you guys know if I made any changes, maybe do like a mid-game video, late-game video, etc. I try to keep you guys up to date if you're going to be playing my build. I want to make sure you guys are having success. So yeah, join my stream if you have any questions, of course, too. Again, do the Discord, join the Discord, pretty active in there. And subscribe if you want to make sure you get up-to-date videos for the build, if you're going to play the build. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hopefully it looks exciting. I think it sure as hell does for me. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and enjoy the new season. Peace.